Yes.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
So, it's the Department of War now.
Mm-hmm.
Hence the
Sir.
Zelensky green.
This is a patriotic move, is it?
Yeah.
In support. You obviously like this change.
It seems to make sense to me. Department of Defense was too mamby-pamby.
It's interesting because it's obviously a reversal to what it used to be.
What it originally was, yeah.
Yeah.
Until World War II.
Mm.
So the end of an era then, because World War II is national security, state, Pentagon, and global outlook.
That's when global peace took over.
Pax Americana begins.
Yep.
So
no more
So it's
war.
Department of Defending what is the status quo is the whole globe.
Well, all the war had been done.
Defense of the realm.
All the wars had been won.
Yeah.
And therefore it was only important now to defend what had been won.
The new order.
Which was the American Empire. That's why it became Department of Defense. Now it has to go back to the Department of War because the American Empire is on the wane. So you have to revert back to the way of re-establishing the American Empire, which is done through war, which is what I've said a few times in this show, which is basically that Trump has no chance of maintaining
intact
that which he has no chance of maintaining by other means that which was attained, or he has no chance of maintaining by other means that which was attained by militarism. The analogy is, the overused analogy is the schoolyard bully.
Mm-hmm.
Bully in the schoolyard got to be a bully by threatening violence in one way or another.
Yeah, and occasionally doing it.
And if necessary, doing it. But after you do it a few times, like if you throw a shitty little country up against the wall once in a while, then everybody else gets the message, right?
Yeah. What a neocon once said.
Right.
Yeah.
So if the bully comes into the schoolyard and says, you know what, I'm turning over a new leaf. I'm a pacifist now. Well, he's going to lose all that he has achieved through being a bully. No more lunch money. Because people say, well, you're a dove now. We don't need to give you our lunch money anymore. And the bully says, you may think that, but I'm going to tariff you. I may not beat you up anymore, but I will impose tariffs.
I want 25% of your lunch money.
I want 25% of your lunch money, or I won't do business with you anymore. Or something like that. So obviously, there's going to be a net reduction in the clout, let's say, of the bully if he takes that approach. Now, it's, analogy only goes so far because Trump is not afraid or not shy of using America's military capabilities, which, as we've seen, but much more overtly signaling to the whole world, including to the target, that we're going to get you. T minus 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, here you go, make sure you're out of the way. But that's very different from the way it was done in the past under neocon types. It was all clouded in, they clouded in everything or didn't say anything about it. It was all done behind the scenes and you just found out afterwards that it was happening. We assume, there was much less signaling and much more use of war and conflict and violence in different ways, either directly or by proxy forces. Trump seems to be not in favor of doing that so much, still wants to use America's military to the extent that he can because it's a useful resource. But to his credit, he seems to be aware of the realities of a changing world and changing power dynamics in the world. We've got two peer competitors at the very least, maybe include India and other, who people are more or less on the same level economically, militarily as the US and can hold their own. So he's aware enough that it's a bad idea to try and take on people who basically can punch back just as hard. So he's rational in that respect where he's not going to go there, whereas his predecessors may well have done in one way or another. But, and it's interesting that this week, or it wasn't just this week, but previously as well, he started off rabble-rousing about Venezuela, which is You could call that's America's backyard, let's say, and then at least from the Americans' point of view, that's similar to Ukraine, it's viewed in the same way Russia views Ukraine, or backyard, or sphere of influence, or near abroad sphere of influence. And there we can exert a lot of influence and control, and through military means as well, because geographically it's much closer. Whereas if you try to maintain some kind of military aggression against a country, a big country, a peer competitor, thousands of miles from your shores, it's not practical, not realistic anymore. It used to be, but not anymore. It used to be enforced by 10 aircraft carriers, sort of little floating bits of America's military apparatus,
and 700 bases
as well. But still, even with the bases, it's supply chain stuff, and with the aircraft carriers, it's supply chain stuff. Too far away. So, best you can do is look at your backyard and secure your influence there. And so it's in line with the kind of stuff we've been saying for quite a while now. Certainly since Trump took office and beforehand, it's strategic. You call it strategic isolationism. It's not isolationist in the kind of traditional sense, where you fully you
go full China and say we're closing
your borders type thing. Mm-hmm. But it's strategic in the sense of you keep your strategic options open, which is like the near abroad, but it is isolationist compared to what came beforehand, which is the American empire exerting its will all around the world.
You mentioned Venezuela, which we'll get into. Can we look first at the Politico article about, because unless you've heard otherwise, this is the first semi-official articulation of what you've been saying would be happening for like the last 8 years, which is that the US would rein in its horns and no longer have a global outlook. And people either never took that seriously, or the idea never occurred to them.
Couldn't believe it.
Until now, when they actually have stated written proof of it, because they went, yeah, but they're still posturing bigly against Russia, China. They've got NGO activity, possibly in Indonesia and stuff. So they seem to be business as usual. However, this does appear to be the first time it's actually going on paper. What Joe was saying 7 and 8 years ago would happen as soon as Trump was elected. Pentagon plan prioritizes homeland over China threat. Would mark a major departure from the first Trump. Well, no, not really. Not really. Even Politico doesn't get it. It would mark a major departure from everything Pax Americana since World War II. So scroll down and we'll get the actual, I say quasi-official because this has been either usurped or deliberately leaked from the White House. Who knows what's going on behind closed doors, because what would normally happen is we just simply get the document. Pentagon officials are proposing that the Department of War prioritize protecting the homeland and Western Hemisphere, namely North and South America, a striking reversal from the military's years-long mandate to focus on the threat from China. A draft of the newest national defense strategy, which landed on Hegseth's desk last week, places domestic and regional missions above countering adversaries such as Beijing and Moscow, according to 3 people briefed on early versions of the report. So that's why I say it's quasi-official. Someone has jumped the gun here, or they've done it themselves.
Yeah, you notice domestic and regional missions. Regional being the near abroad, Latin America, certainly Central America, and down to the top of Latin America, let's say. But it's kind of like a difficult proposition, Again, like when you see them attacking, having a go at Venezuela, Maduro, rehashing all the old, evil dictator, he needs to be overthrown, saying all that kind of stuff. It's like, dude, we've been here before, we've heard that stuff for decades, literally. Like, it's kind of, nobody really believes it, or anybody with any sense doesn't believe it, and knows what it's about, doesn't believe your narrative about it, and should understand why you're doing it. But, yeah. But the problem is that his predecessors have created such a situation for so long, where America was dominating the entire world and threatening the entire world, that certain, and particularly countries that were strategically important, i.e., had oil reserves or some other natural resources that America wanted access to, and done that everywhere that different groups in different parts of the world have made over the past number of years, or have gone some way into making alliances with each other. Venezuela being a case in point, where it's cozying up to BRICS countries and Russia and China, and has been for quite a long time. So for America to now pivot back towards its backyard and think that, look, okay, you guys are all mine, basically. Well, it's like, well, there is a history here where you've kind of,
I think it's too late.
Forced
It's not
us
going
to
to
go.
work, but that's a different. Maybe that's the question to ask.
I mean, in theory, they
2
could and
weeks
should.
ago, the US announced that they sent a huge 8 ships total, 2 large carrier groups of 4,500 sailors and Marines to the Southern Caribbean. It actually manifested in an airstrike against a speedboat this week. We got people asking, are they going to invade Venezuela?
No.
It's nowhere near enough for a ground force invasion, a full ground scale,
A full
scale ground invasion
full ground
on the
war.
face of it. But following, so this speedboat was hit. Venezuela sent up 2 of its Russian Sukhoi S-35s.
Were they Russian? I thought they were F-16s. I think they were F-16s.
Okay.
2 American planes.
Okay.
Didn't actually fly over the plane, just flew over the Russian or the American ships, flew in close proximity to them. I mean, they make a big deal out of it in this situation. It's like, they're doing this, they're doing that.
How
It's like,
dare they?
Wasn't there video taken from inside the cockpit and you can see the ship below? They didn't buzz it like go right over
no,
there.
but that's the thing. But that's what was portrayed in the media. You know,
Yeah.
this aggressive maneuver, like
yeah.
came in for an attack run, and it's like, that's part of
in
the
the
rhetoric.
sequence of events. Trump then announced he deployed 10 F-35s in addition to Puerto Rico.
Yeah, and a golf cart.
Saying that this was a response to, and warned that if you do that, we will be. Anyway, the tit for tat at the narrative level is, it looks pretty hot. One saying, screw you.
It's just an attempt to intimidate.
Yes. Yeah.
But not without any follow through. I think that's all Trump's got. That's all he can muster from his swollen ankles. He has to put his feet up.
Okay, so this is Trump. This is Trump carrying a big stick, but he's not likely to use it.
Tariffs. Think of tariffs.
Tariffs.
This is kinetic tariffs. He should coin that phrase and say, I just invented a new phrase, kinetic tariffs. I like to call them kinetic tariffs. You mean missiles? Yeah, but I like to look at them as kinetic tariffs. They have the same effect. Except you can't take them back.
Hence the kinetic.
Yes, but you can not continue to apply them. You can take them back in a certain sense.
Isn't it a shame, though, that the US is more honest in some respects? Department of War, baby, but then still has a faggoty kind of explanation. So the White House press secretary, Trump is prepared to use every element of American power to stop drugs, seriously, from flooding into our country to bring those responsible to justice. The Maduro regime is not, this is a separate sub-issue they have. The Maduro regime is not the legitimate government of Venezuela.
I have to say that, right?
Then she puts the two together and says it is a narco-terror cartel, which is a direct throwback to George H.W. Bush in 1989, saying that the reason they invaded Panama was because Noriega was a narco dictator who had previously been on the CIA payroll, but he went a bit too independent, blah, blah, blah. But it's the same bullshit reason. Well, he's not legitimate democratically, and it's drugs. Come on, guys. It's the oil. You can say it. Just
it's oil and bricks.
Please say it.
Oil and bricks.
You want them to just keep.
It's oil and bricks and Venezuela, trying to pull Venezuela back from, the alliances it has already made with the East, let's say, the rest of the world, the silver. There's a golden billion and the silver 8 billion. The other silver 8 billion. But like drugs, so he's going to stop drugs by blowing up ships. I mean, I don't know.
It's horseshit.
Has he read any Gary Webb's books? Like, Dark Alliance, the CIA, the Contras, and the
Well,
crack cocaine explosion, stuff like that. I mean, it's kind of
what
unimpeachable kind of sources that are going back to the 80s and into the 90s and stuff, laying out the fact that the drug problem in America is very long and well established and has direct ties to the American government, well, CIA intelligences itself. So, like, the idea that you're going to stop a drug problem in America by attacking boats supposedly full of drugs run by narco traficantes from Venezuela or Colombia, when they're doing it at the behest of the CIA or in league with the CIA and have been for decades.
And they're not really using Venezuela. Venezuela is 17th on the list of countries that, according to the DEA, actually is the origin point for production.
Yeah.
And
but they would say it's a transit point. There's many different.
The elephant in the room, obviously, is Mexico. And what's interesting that when they announced the deployment to the South Caribbean, no one followed up on it, but half of it was actually a deployment to the Mexican border.
Mm-hmm.
Between that and other things, he made moves immediately after beginning his term this year to secure the border.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably part of the same thing. There are far more U.S. troops actually stationed and active and patrolling and assisting in policing operations, essentially, along the physical border. It's the elephant in the room. There is an issue, and there is justification. I would say moral, at least, if not legal, for the U.S. to make Mexico compel it using force deal with the problem, because that's out of hand. It's effectively like there's a third regime has developed. You've got Mexico, your neighbor. You've got the United States, and there's another country in the middle. It's a problem for everyone.
Yeah.
But instead, and maybe they have that in mind longer term. Part of me hopes they do. Instead, Secretary of State Rubio is in, when this goes down in Venezuela with the speedboat and the diplomatic spat with Venezuela, he's in Mexico City with Scheinbaum, where they're working out how to improve security, and he's railing about Venezuela being a narco-terrorist state and all this stuff with her in Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, dude, the problem is standing right next to you. Or it's not her per se, but it's this third element, this third force that's grown up along the border. Anyway, so there is a real problem there, and part of you, whether you're pro-Trump or not, you would like that to be dealt with. You'd like to think that he's using different narratives, but actually he's aware that the CIA and this third regime in the Badlands of the border region are the real problem. It's not China, it's not Venezuela, it's the Mexican border issue, and that he's building up and setting an example by showing how serious it is about going after narco-terrorism.
Mm-hmm.
And this is maybe some kind of feint that he would not actually follow through with regime changing Venezuela, and thus avoiding the fucking elephant in the room. But that's probably we have to see how things develop. I did a little background checking on what's been going on vis-a-vis Venezuela in recent months. Some of them people have heard of. So there was the $50 million bounty on Maduro's head for being a narco traficante.
Mm-hmm.
And it was laughable at the time, but it's actually part of a whole package of things that have been going on. So if you go back to the first Trump administration, he slapped sanctions on Venezuelan oil big time and basically choked its economy further. And that resulted in some kind of color revolution during an election. Then Maduro won anyway, but the whole Juan Guaido attempting to claim victory under the nose of Maduro. That failed. A year later, there was an assassination attempt on Maduro. Others have been foiled since, and the Venezuelans have arrested U.S. special forces involved in that. So that's all Trump won. That's the first 4 years. I mean, that was pretty. He did seriously try to regime change in different ways. Maduro. Okay, didn't work. But the sanctions regime produced a very interesting unintended consequence. 90 to 95% of Venezuela's heavy crude oil exports go to China. Just since 2017, it goes from almost zero to China to 95% as a direct result of China stepped in and made up the difference. And so Trump has been trying to undo that.
Exactly.
In August, late August, he announced he was easing sanctions on Venezuela's crude oil, specifically granting Chevron an import waiver. And now all the other American companies are queuing up and saying, can we have it too? Can we have it too? This is so important for the US because its main refineries in the Gulf Coast are geared towards, always have been, receiving Venezuela's heavy crude. That I couldn't believe that. Well, I can believe it. It makes sense. I mean, this is what it's remarkable because we know Iran's export of oil is 90% range, which shows you how important it would be to them. It's a lifeline. Basically, without it, Iran truly is sanctioned vis-a-vis oil and doesn't have enough income to develop to China. So China is, the Americans would say that's China being greedy. They just want it all. Well, it's also a lifeline. They're doing it strategically because there's no other way for them to earn any income. And so
China needs it as well.
Okay,
they're not buying anything that's not going to use. Like,
it's not out of the goodness of their heart that they're doing it as strategic, like in the business. Savvy
there's all
sense.
all sorts of stuff where you buy crude and refine it. China has its own oil refineries where it'll buy crude and then, heavy crude, whatever, and refine it into, for its own use. So it's not just that China's sitting there and waiting for ready to use oil to buy ready to use oil from all around the world. There's a whole process with all sorts of different, bunch of different countries, oil producers and non-producers, who, like countries that don't really produce much in the way of oil, have refineries to receive that heavy crude and refine. So they are refiners of oil, but they're not significant producers of oil. And there's other countries that, like Venezuela or the US itself or whatever, who produce their own heavy crude, but don't refine it there and send it to someone else to refine it. And then they also buy light oil that's already refined, let's say, or ready to use. There's a whole trade of the whole thing going on. People tend to think that, look, any country that produces its own oil just uses all that oil itself, and then if it needs more, it has to buy it. But it's actually a lot more complicated.
No, I don't. That's why I say China does that to help get their stuff out and onto the market. It's not necessarily that they gobble it all up or get all the economic benefits from it.
It's just the fact that they aren't playing, or like they don't have as much, like the U.S. doesn't have as much control over China and what China is doing, and so when China sees the opportunity, it's like, well, why wouldn't?
Yeah, you create a vacuum. Okay, we'll fill it.
Yeah.
Here's it's gone further than that, and I wonder if this has accelerated Trump's desire to pressure. We're saying pressure, not actually follow through on regime change. Pressure Venezuela.
Intimidating.
Two Reuters reports, one from mid-August. China's investing. This is also a first. It's one thing to say, okay, we'll take it and ship it and help you sell it on the world market. They're actually investing in further developing its oil fields. So private Chinese firm producing oil in Venezuela under rare 20-year pact. A Chinese firm has begun developing 2 oil fields in Venezuela, planning to invest another $1 billion in a project to produce 60,000 barrels per day of crude oil. That's a lot. So to give you an idea of that, the kind of scaling up there, at its lowest point when it was hammered in 2017, Venezuela's production of oil, never mind exports, its production of its oil fields went down to around 320 600,000 barrels per day. It's now back to nearly 1 million, thanks to China taking 95% of what it can export. And this would bump it up again. They say this is a rare investment. Never mind the purchasing.
That's totally different. That's more worrying for
Trump.
Big
time. So that's August 22nd. Here's another one, September 5th. Obviously, that's that's a promise to develop in the future. But I don't know if this is the same project or something different, because
it says it has begun developing.
It might well be, because maybe people might have seen footage of this floating around on X. September 4th this week, floating oil facility arrives in Venezuela. It is the same company for China's China Concords project. So that's a photo of PDVSA. That's a Venezuelan state oil company, which used to be exclusively geared towards American firms.
Mm-hmm.
They only did. We have to remember that until Chavez came along, the state oil company was just looking northwards.
Mm-hmm.
Here, Uncle Sam, your refineries, and we'll get a cut in your refinery, bring it on the global market. They can rebrand it as American oil.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't. It was Venezuela. So it's unbelievable to me how the one thing they didn't want to happen, all their actions to try and target Venezuela, sanctions, tariffs, regime change, even an attempted assassination, are producing on the ground the direct opposite results.
What they want to.
And so I think it's the little business news reports like this, and there's been a steady trickle of other developments about Chinese and Russian big long-term deals with Venezuela all summer long that have tipped something in DC, and they're like, okay, we need, I don't know how do they even say it to themselves, we need to take Venezuela back.
Mm-hmm.
But good luck to them, because doing it the hard way hasn't worked. Doing it the easy way isn't working either. And I think they themselves don't know. They don't know how to go about it. So this import waiver that was granted to Chevron this week was denied the American company in May. So, they're not sure how to go about it. What they're doing right now is they're threatening Venezuela, but they're threatening them with a narrative story about drugs and democracy and stuff. You do wonder, does anyone ever sit down and say, okay, look, this is really about oil, and how do you win back a relationship? The thing is, you can't. It takes time. You can't.
If you shoot some missiles and threaten people, you can get it done very quickly.
So, do you think there could be a little bit of a war, a short, sharp war, the series of airstrikes?
Don't think so. I don't think it's going to make any difference unless they somehow are able to take out Chavez. But even then, not Chavez, but Maduro. But even then, that's not gonna. They know that's not taking out one person. To be like, doesn't change anything. You need some kind of a coup, color revolution in the country, and I don't think that's going to happen either. So I think it's pretty impotent, to be honest. I think it's just following a trend, and it's an unstoppable trend, and I don't think there's going to be much that deviates it from the course that it's set on, which is of America, losing bigly, increasingly as time goes on. The tide has turned. The tide isn't turning. The tide has turned. It just takes a while for it to actually manifest, and for people to wake up and realize that that's what's actually happened. And only then does it all go pear-shaped. It's only when people recognize that it's happening. But as long as Trump can keep bluffing for a while and keep saying MAGA and we're doing the best we have ever been, you can probably tell how badly America's doing by just assuming the reverse of what just invert Trump's words every time he says, this is the best that America's ever been. We're winning so bigly. It's amazing. This is just the winning. I just can't take so much winning, that kind of thing. It's actually the opposite is happening.
Yeah. So even the
But America's
if they could reorient from a global policeman role to a regional power, they can't even do that.
No.
At least not in this case, because Venezuela is so antagonistic.
Yeah. No, they spoiled the soup a long time
no
ago.
longer have.
They spoiled the soup a long time ago.
They don't have the political capital.
It's like somebody like overreaching, and in a neighborhood or something like that. It's like one neighbor in a house, like basically being a real asshole, policing the neighborhood, treating everybody really badly, and having some success with some people who fell in line, whatever, but then extending, wanting to take over the entire neighborhood, realizing that he doesn't have the means to do it, and then finally backing away, but not before he's actually pissed everybody off and turning everybody against him. And then he leaves the house and sells it to some new neighbours, and those poor new neighbours are left with the stigma of being, yeah, you own that house, you're in that house with that asshole who tried to piss everybody off, and it stays. You know what I mean? It's almost like the family members move in or something like that. You know what I mean? But basically, there's a stigma that's attached to America right now. Like America has done enough damage already, particularly with countries like, I'm not saying everybody, because there's lackeys in Europe and all that kind of stuff who still are sucking up, and they've got Stockholm syndrome, the Europeans. But like certain countries in Latin America, obviously Russia, China, and quite a number of African countries, and several Southeast Asian countries, they've previous American administrations have just turned those countries against, to one extent or another, turned those countries against America and made them, disinclined to be friendly America or to trust America. And Trump, it's like Venezuela is a good example. You can't, to a large extent, the Bolivarian revolution and the socialism, the evil socialism supposedly that's going on in Venezuela is a function of American intervention, American involvement in Latin America in general over the past 40, 50, 60 years. Created governments like the Maduro government, and created
rebellious
and created a popular kind of mindset, a mindset amongst the population, an anti-American mindset amongst the majority of the population. And sorry, you can't undo that. Like, it doesn't matter if you're Trump and you come in and say, but he's not even coming in and saying like, he kind of is saying I'm a peace president and stuff, but when he does stuff like he's done the past week here, just confirms to those people that the face may change, but the policy doesn't. So it's kind of too late. Like, you have to suck it up. You made your bed, basically, and Trump would say, like he says, not my war. Ukraine's not my war. None of these wars are mine. None of these problems are mine. Well, they kind of are.
Yeah.
And even not just as in terms of you being the inheritor of the legacy and the steward of the American ship, and therefore you take on its responsibilities and its crimes and all that kind of stuff. And if you want to make up for those crimes, then you have to actually do something concrete about making up for them, if you can. But Trump himself was like, in terms of Ukraine, talking about Ukraine not being, this Biden's war and stuff, he keeps out, in the same breath, he'll say this is Biden's war, it would never have happened. In his first term, he was the one who sent in all the Javelin anti-tank missiles to Ukraine. Thousands of them. And he was on board. He was front and center in shoving weapons into Ukraine in his first term. Maybe because he didn't know what the fuck he was doing, which is probably very, very likely. Americans wasn't it Karl Rove supposedly said they were on Tuskend, we're an empire now.
Yeah. And the rest of you will just study what we do.
Yeah. That is, and I was thinking about that the other day, and how, it sounded like, just the delusions of some, American White House official. But initially, when I heard it, but I was thinking, let me just read it to you here. Karl Rove, oh my God. He said, The hell is it? He said, the aide said, this is, so allegedly Karl Rove said to this reporter, he said, Rove said, look, guys like you are in what we in the government call the reality-based community, which he defined as people who believe that solutions emerge from your judicious study of discernible reality. And the guy nodded and murmured something about Enlightenment principles and empiricism, as the reporter did. But he cut him off. Rove cut him off and said, that's not the way the world really works anymore. We're an empire now, and when we act, we create our own reality. And while you're studying that reality, judiciously as you will act again, creating other new realities, which you can study too. And that's how things will sort out. We're history's actors, and you, all of you, will be left to just study what we do. So talk about personal hubris and stuff, but it's, the hubris perfectly defines the hubris of that ran the American government probably since, at least since the Second World War. Most of them anyway.
Yeah. But it's so infectious.
But it's part of the American mythos. It's part of
Trump has a bit of it too.
But it's not. It's every American has
Trump
it.
is like,
every American
just scare them. Just scare them bigly.
Right.
But obviously we don't have enough to actually launch a full ground-scale invasion of Venezuela. But we can spook them, the markets will rally, and I'll get Maduro on the phone on a back channel and we'll say, oh, I'm not serious, but you got the message right.
Yeah, Trump
thinks
Trump is a quintessential American in that respect, and he's the perfect example of that American mythos and idea of the American dream and all that kind of stuff, which is pretty much basically what Karl Rove said. He was talking about from a political perspective, from a power politics perspective, but it filters down to the American people, where it's whatever you dream you can be, you can actually be that if you just have to work hard, and you can American industrialism and or entrepreneurial spirit, and you'll get there. Just whatever it is, just say it and you'll have it almost,
Yeah.
And that's maybe a more recent thing. Obviously, that's not necessarily the foundational mythos or ideology of America, of the founders of the country. But we know we're very far from that now. And I think this has taken over. This idea of the American dream has took over after the Second World War and has consolidated itself in the minds of the American people since then, to the point that it's part of how they view the world. That it's if you want it, if we say it, it's going to happen. It's like, yeah, they see themselves as reality creators.
Well, it's interesting that he used the term reality creator, because that's literally a mantra in the New Age movement, which was born out of the self-actualization pseudo-psychology in the 1970s in the United States, which is that, how does it go? If you wish it to be so, you can will it into, I can't remember the New Age thing.
You create your own reality.
You create your own reality.
Yeah.
You create your own reality. Oh, Karl Rove literally, far from a New Agey, right? Yeah. He's a suit, he's a Pentagon, he's a big political operator in the empire. He literally said, we are endowed with this special niche psychological ability to create our own reality. All the rest of you 8 billion plebs, no chance.
Yeah.
And that's hubris.
Except that it does filter down to the average member of the population, in a weakened, like obviously less belligerent kind of, or less self-important kind of way, maybe, or less megalomaniacal kind of way, but it still, I think, is part of the American mentality, that idea that the world is your oyster. It's a land of opportunity. Just whatever you want, just go out and get it. It's there for the taking. It's just very different from a lot of other countries and the mindset, cultural and social kind of
because they've been shaped by scarcity and wars.
Yeah.
So they were just forced cooperation. You can't just get what you want. Damn the others.
So anyway, I think that's what Trump, for me, that's kind of when Trump, when he, talks about the America, how it is today and all that kind of stuff, he's infected in a certain sense with that mindset, which is just natural, because It's pervasive in the US, and he thinks that if he says that the economy's doing awesome and America's the best it's ever been, and all this kind of stuff, and we're going into a golden era of America, that's all influenced by that mindset of if you say it, it'll happen.
It will be so. The field of dreams.
It's a bit of his narcissism in there.
There is.
For him particularly.
Yeah, as well.
Or especially.
But you notice how that's his personality, let's say, but other people like Karl Rove, neocon types, all believed exactly the same thing, you know?
Well, I mean, they were
but
pathologicals too.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But they were worse. Because they were smart enough to kind of not be open about it, let's say, because that quote should never have, should never become publicly known, but it exposed the way those people think, So yeah, when you I don't know, blow up a boat and threaten Venezuela, that's enough to, still the dream of American military might and American prowess and America's reputation around the world that I can still leverage, and people will fall in line behind it. But I don't think that's the way things work anymore.
There's very interesting. I think it's just symbolic, but it's interesting. So on the very day that Trump, in the little escalation of tit for tat with Maduro this week, announced that he would send 10 F-35s to Puerto Rico, which is the proximate available base for the US to do that, to threaten Venezuela further south. There was there've been a few over the years. It's a growing issue. There was a big turnout of several thousand attending an independence march in Puerto Rico. Independence from the United States. Now, that's a massive sea change. Before 9/11, as far as I'm aware, I'm not totally up to speed. I think you could say that the majority of Puerto Ricans were lobbying and clamoring for its full recognition as a U.S. state. But it hasn't been an overseas dependency since 1898. For some reason, in their wisdom, they decided that Puerto Rico would not become one and it would remain so, like Guantanamo Bay and Cuba and all the other acquisitions since 1898. I mean, Hawaii became a state, but not Puerto Rico. Anyway, there's been a sea change. They're sick of it now. And now there's a big lobbying independence movement in Puerto Rico in the other direction. They're like, we're done. We tried. It didn't work. We get slammed by a hurricane and we don't get helped. They get some help. But they're claiming they don't get, it's true, they don't get the release of federal funding the way that other normal states would. And so they're done. So there was a big march going on that very day. It's unrelated to Venezuela, but it is related because a proper relationship, cooperative one that didn't look down on Puerto Rico, would have by now resulted in a loyal part of the United States. Instead, they're like treated as useful as landing pad.
Yeah, it's like
to police the rest of the continent.
When you're talking about when Joe was talking about the near abroad, the pivot away from China and towards the back home and all that, you would want to see in that kind of conceptualization of, okay, how can we secure ourselves for the future, seeing that this is the way that the world is shaping out. Okay, well, obviously Europe and Asia and all that is very far away, and they have obvious powers there that will be the dominant forces in that area, and that just makes sense. So then, in order to kind of maintain as much of a position of power and influence globally, that means that you need to get your ducks in a row with your neighbors locally.
Yeah.
And so Puerto Rico is about as close to a U.S. state as you're going to get. Mm-hmm. It should be as close a friend as we can have. And so the fact that not only that there is this movement, but that it's growing, well, that's Jordan Peterson 101, clean your room before you start trying to go make the world a better place, because what the hell do you know?
Yeah.
So if you can't even treat your I can't remember how
your closest form of a near abroad.
Yeah.
A place that is effectively a state, because Puerto Ricans are free to come and go within the US. They have some representation, not actual sitting reps in Congress, but I don't know how it works exactly. They have, I think they have a rep in DC who speaks on their behalf, something like that. It's just so symptomatic of a failure, which is understandable, because the hubris just of the last 80 years has just taken them all the way up to this extreme view of a reality creation mindset, that they've forgotten some basic diplomacy 101.
They've never had to do it. They don't know basic diplomacy 101. I mean, it's been for the last 80 years. It's been, when I say jump, you say how high, you know?
Yeah. We see this going on in other spheres. You know, the way it's not just Trump who does it; they all do it. In fact, there was a hot mic moment this week. Do you know when Trump had Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, and some other big tech for a powwow in DC? Trump turned to Zuckerberg and said, "How much will you say you're going to invest in the U.S. economy?" The Zuck said, "We're looking at 600 million, some figure like that." And then they were caught on the hot mic.
Trump saying, "That's not enough."
That's what you think. No. The Zuck turned to Trump and he said, "Oh, you caught me there, sir. I wasn't sure. I just threw out a number." The number was, he just came up with it. And similarly, remember the big announcement right after his term began in late January this year, when he had Sam Altman there, the 500 billion was like, that turned out to just have been made up before they went in the room for the press. There was no plan, there was no budget, and you see this in both public figures and corporate figures in the US. They literally pull money out of their ass because they've never really had to budget. They don't have to. Why would you, if you print the world's reserve currency?
Yeah,
there's never been any need.
Well, some of those
grows on trees
to balance the budget.
Well, and Sam Altman and people who are in that tech sphere kind of thing, tech in particular. I mean, other sectors have this as well in the U.S., but tech specifically, they are used to just having money thrown at them without ever having to turn a profit. I can't remember how many, but there is a number of big names. Like Facebook didn't turn a profit forever. ChatGPT, Scotty, has ChatGPT turned a profit yet?
I'm not sure actually, but I know what you're talking about. Like, they don't have to make money.
Exactly. They don't make money, and yet they still get government. All of these grants. They get investments and from exactly what you're saying. So they've never really had to do a very basic, like, being smart with their money, because they've always just had so much money thrown at them. And part of that is because, well, I mean, we're kind of tapped into the geostrategic, we've got to do all the things before the Chinese do. And so we'll just throw money at you and you can take care of it. But that's not sustainable.
No.
Or realistic.
Not if the day comes when they do have to deal with the debt. And that is surely fast approaching. We've done a lot of America bashing here, so I want to balance the books a bit and say that if you step out even further, very general point, at the very least, this is this could be interpreted as overall a good development, because what's happening is the US can no longer be the way it was, so it's having to rein in its horns. It's in one sense it's choosing to, in the other sense it has to. We've already heard them expressly use the M word, multipolarity. We know that they know, at least in part, that the world, that there is a separate objective reality, a separate historical process taking place that is not under the control of us, the reality creators. It's outside of us. It's higher than. So we've heard Rubio say it, even though you can turn on the TV the next day and hear Rubio sound just like a neocon, rabid, ultra-right, Latino American, let's go in and kill all the socialists. He does sound like that sometimes, but we know also he's aware and thinking of the M word. So they're adjusting. Let's try and give them some room. They are adjusting. They're trying to sometimes. And it's just that their interpretation of it comes through the lens of all they know, which is, okay, we see what you're saying, Beijing and Moscow, multipolarity. So what you mean is you got to grab and control everything locally. And then that'll be your pole in the multipolar world. Gotcha. Okay, Venezuela, take it. They're misinterpreting. You can't really say it's analogous to Ukraine. Ukraine is economically, culturally, genetically plugged into Russia. Venezuela isn't. There have been lots of migrants in recent years which now have familial and black market economic connections with the United States, but it's not actually a sisterly or brotherly country of the US proper. So if they're interpreting it that way, they're not quite getting it yet. So what you're saying is we should smash and grab everything around us. Like Trump kind of signaled that when he went day one of second term, right? Greenland. Day 3, okay, Canada, you're next. Was he joking? Was he serious? It's gone to bed for now, but for a while there, the Danes were like, we thought you were joking, but just for the record, no.
Yeah. That's
smash and grab. That's their interpretation of multipolarity for now.
Smash and grab in what way? I mean,
okay, China. So that's your sphere of influence. Fine.
Spheres of influence. Yeah.
So this is ours.
Yeah, but not. Yeah.
But the reason that the others are having success with doing that is because they have build trust and relationships with their near abroad.
They've been doing
the US is starting from zero.
Yeah,
they haven't got.
They're not even starting from zero. They're having to backtrack, from where they were, because that wasn't their policy. Their policy was unipolarity, right?
Yeah.
So that in order to become multipolar, you have to again, not to overuse the analogy, but I will. Schoolyard bully. I spent the last 10 years bullying all the kids in the schoolyard, every single year, every day, all year. Then he wants to become a dove. How many of the kids are going to trust him? He made enemies of pretty much everybody. While they've all kind of got together and complained about the bully now wants to be their friend. What's he got to do? He's going to eat some crow, a lot of crow. How long is it going to take for them to trust him? Is there going to be any desire for revenge? Are they going to conspire against him? Even if he's a dove now? They're going to get their own back now? Oh, so you're not punching back anymore? Okay, I'm going to throw some in your face, and since you won't punch me back yet, I'm gonna get some revenge, basically, And that actually came up this week, basically, where Trump said, it's funny, like this one, yeah, this one. This was you had the Chinese. You had the Chinese military parade for the end of the Second World War when they beat the Japs,
which was awesome,
which was bigger than even Russia's. And then following immediately on the heels of it, they had the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting of all the people, countries within that, basically Eurasian countries for the most part. And Trump decided to weigh in, so he's left out in the cold, both for the military parade, which was, made his military parade look really, really bad, which wasn't difficult to make the one he had look really, really bad. But anyway, and then he wasn't obviously at this meeting of Putin and Modi and Xi and other leaders, most of them together totaling half the world's population and more than half the world's resources. And his response was, the big question to be answered is whether or not President Xi of China will mention the massive amount of support. So he looked desperately saying, say something nice about America at least, since you didn't invite me. But towards the bottom he says, please give my warmest regards to Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un. He's addressing this to President Xi, I suppose. Give my warmest regards. And I wouldn't be able to make it anyway. I know you didn't invite me, but even if you had done, I was busy that day, so I wouldn't have come, even if you had invited me. So I'm glad you didn't invite me. But anyway, please give my warmest regards to Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un. And as you conspire against the United States of America, President Donald J. Trump, I know you're conspiring against us. Like, no, we're just doing what we had to do because of your predecessors and what they did to the world and how they treated the world. We're just doing what we had to do, which was not conspire, but get together,
It's so salty.
And
do you know what it's like? It's like, for me, it's like you MAGA guys responding to Trump's election in 2016 and looking at all those salty liberal tears, which is what they were. The saltiness was just off the charts. But when the rest of the world hears the new nationalist, more peaceful American president say that, it's like salty. Saltier than the Indian
That's
Ocean.
what you get. I'm sorry for you, but that's what you get. And then he followed it up with this one, because there was this picture. He commented on this picture of the three, Modi, Xi, and Putin walking out at the SCO, I think it was. And he comments, this is on Truth Social, looks like we've lost India and Russia to deepest, darkest China now. Mm-hmm. It used to be reserved for Africa, but now apparently China is deepest, darkest China. So apparently America has lost India and Russia, which is interesting. He said, we've lost those two to China. We never had China. China was always our adversary from Trump's perspective. But there was a possibility of
India
and Russia being in America's, at least friendly with America, but apparently this picture alone, according to Trump, says we've lost India and Russia to China. But to his credit, he says, may they have a long and prosperous future together while you conspire against us.
Again, salty. Well, it's also that one's revealing because, it's Trump, so you never know, but take it at face value. It expresses disappointment that something his administration had been trying to do apparently hasn't worked. Mm-hmm. That's shocking. I find that shocking because he really thought that positive overtures to those two countries would work to make them not attend an SCO conference, which they have attended annually now for 18 or 19 years. Mm-hmm. What they would go, we're not going? What did you think was going to? It's silly. Actually, there is some. Modi didn't go. At least he didn't go to whenever the event was held in China. Modi has not been for 7 years.
Yeah.
So that, I suppose, is what the Western press noticed the most. Why is he there? He's supposed to be with us.
Well, 50% tariffs the week previous, right? And obviously that's just the overt manifestation of something that's been going on in the background. Trump, again, it's like bomb a boat in Venezuela, put extra tariffs in this country. In both cases, the two countries that receive that attempted intimidation just go, whatever. That all you got? No, thanks. You're not helping your case here. And you have to remember, you can stop saying that this isn't my war, or, this is all the problems that I'm confronted with are not of my doing. It's like, yes, maybe most of them technically, but you're the inheritor. You're the inheritor and the representative of previous American administrations and America, the country in general, and you get the legacy that comes with that. Now, if you want to change that completely and do a mea culpa and atone for your sins, then start doing it in an earnest way. Don't it's not enough simply to say, out of a realization that you can't do it. It's not enough to simply not try to stir up, war, conflict, set fires in different countries. It's not enough to simply not follow a belligerent approach anymore. If you're going to maintain the same arrogant attitude by other means, like with your tariffs, basically, which is what he is, which is what he's doing. It's just America has inflated itself with a sense of its own self-worth, let's say, that has expired.
Yeah.
It has a sense of its sense of its own self-worth is past its expiry date at this point, and it's having difficulty recognizing it.
Yeah. Because
being top of the world for so long, it's very difficult to change your beliefs. And this goes back. It reminded me of the comment again. Those two conspirators, Xi and Putin, a couple of years ago, after Xi came to, I think it was the last time he was in Moscow in 2023. They were overheard saying, I think it was like a hot mic moment. It's the fourth or fifth paragraph down there. It says, Xi says to Putin, "Right now there are changes the likes of which we haven't seen for 100 years, and we are the ones driving these changes together," Xi told Putin as he stood at the door of the Kremlin. So, I mean, that was significant then, and it definitely figured into our perspective at the time, what we've been saying since then. That those two guys are, at least they're under the impression that they believe that they're in the process of driving changes the like of which haven't seen for 100 years. Now, 100 years is an interesting time frame, because go back 100 years ago, from even 2 years ago, it was right in between.
1923 was the final settlement that carved up the Middle East,
right?
The Ottoman Empire.
But in general, what he's saying, I haven't been seen for 100 years, he's really talking about the change that happened over the first part of the world order that was established that were, presented very big changes, like we talked about earlier in the show, that up until the first half of the 20th century, basically, there were major changes in the world order. Specifically, the establishment of the Pax Americana, especially, really becoming a reality after the Second World War, and we've had 80 years of that up until today. So, 100 years ago, the world order changed from the way it was before, to which was, we may see that kind of a world order again emerging to some extent, hopefully without the wars, but it turned into an American empire, the age of the American empire, basically, and they're talking about that ending, and that's what we're seeing play out in all its different manifestations, and Trump's responses to things, and what he's doing, blowing up boats here, saying things here. Can it be navigated? I don't know. Fucking difficult.
This was supposed to be the new American century. The next 100 years would be theirs too.
Yeah.
Is that looking at all likely?
No. No, that's over. That was a pipe dream. Always was a pipe dream. All they've done is just wreck a lot of places, and I mean, that seemed to be in their policy. Like that was the PNAC, the Project for a New American Century, the neocons, 9/11, the War on Terror, projecting America's power around the world. It wasn't really about securing the realm for the next 21st for the 21st century.
It was about sabotaging this process.
It was about, and full awareness that there's threats coming to. Because everyone else
in the schoolyard is starting to turn.
They're starting to grow a beard. So
they're lifting weights.
So they start. Yeah. So they decided to go around and cut everybody's beards, and think that would stop. Set all the stubbly beards on fire.
Back to 2-year-olds.
Set them all on fire. Yeah.
Yeah.
And think that'll make a difference.
You're still kids.
If they don't have beards, then they're not adults, right? I just burned them off. That makes you not an adult anymore. which is again, why the change is really, for me, the change from Department of Defense to Department of War is a very interesting moment,
right?
Because of what we talked about,
Yeah.
Because Department of Defense was changed at a point where it was no longer necessary to wage war to maintain,
Right.
to establish the American empire. It was now to establish the global hegemony, America's global hegemony. It was to defend that. It's secured, it's locked down, let's defend it. Okay, there was the Soviet Union and the world was divided in two, let's say, but they thought that was eventually going to crumble.
And it did. And then they said, end of history.
No problem, it's done. The Soviet Union is broken up, Russia's in shambles, we're going to just roll in there and take over all the oil and gas. It'll just be like, we're just going to tidy up there, That was always going to happen, But it didn't work out that way. But interestingly, there's been more war and destruction and strife, I'd say, under the Department of Defense since the Second World War. Or globally things have gone downhill in terms of peace and security since the Department of War was renamed the Department of Defense. So under defense, what sounds more like peaceful, is actually things were worse. Okay, you can say it was after two world wars, so it was better. But generally speaking, the trend has been downwards. And going back to, people think like, well, Trump's changed the name back to the Department of War, right? That means there's going to be more war, right? Because now it's more militaristic. It's not defensive anymore. But I think it'll actually be the opposite.
Point of order.
Because it does define isolationism in a certain sense,
Point of order. Defenders of Pax Americana would say that the world got exponentially better under American stewardship, at least until the 90s.
It's kind of circular.
Then China's development took off. They lifted 800 million out of poverty and they started investing in Africa. And now we're in China.
So China did that because of America? They should thank America for lifting those 500 million people out of poverty.
They do claim some, because Nixon turns to China in 1979. They have Deng Xiaoping, who declares the five, whatever, and said basically turns ultra-capitalist, and American investment is unlocked, and then Apple and et cetera, go into China. So the Americans do say, yeah, that was our baby, and now it's growing a beard. What are you doing?
That was as much for America's interests as it was for China's. They weren't doing China any favors.
Yeah. They did seem to not see it coming, what would happen if
it's circular logic.
If they developed China. They helped it.
It's too kind of circular in a sense to say that obviously, if you use the First and Second World Wars as an example of what came beforehand, then yes, of course, if there hasn't been more wars, if it wasn't a Third World War after that, then yes, that's been much more peaceful period of time, right? But you never know. You know what I mean? Just because America, it's like saying that there's been two major wars that have affected much of the world. 100 million people dead, shocked everybody. Who's to say that every other country that was involved in those wars would not also have decided on their own, without America's influence, that was enough? No, they're all savages. It needed America to tell them, see, that wars are all bad, you got to stop the wars, So
Trump goes around telling him he's wrapping up all these decades-long conflicts.
Yeah.
Solving them like overnight.
Well, he claimed the other day on camera saying that America had won the First World War, the Second World War, everything in between, and everything that came before it. That's literally what he said. Everything in between. I'm not sure what in between 1918 and 1939. Probably a few conflicts here and there, but America solved them, whatever they were. But everything that came before the First World War, the War of the Roses, English Civil War, Franco-Prussian War, America won that one too. It won every war it was involved in. Anyway, the point being, I can't remember what the phrase is, but basically, to claim credit, for America to claim credit for the relative peace and prosperity that came after the Second World War, until today is a bit disingenuous because there's no way to disprove that. There's no way to prove it, and there's no way to disprove it. You can't go back and say, okay, well, if we didn't have an American empire or the establishment of the American empire then, an American hegemony since then, you can't say that if we didn't have that we would have had another world war within a few years, and then we'll have another war and another war and another war, and everyone would have fallen apart. You can claim that, but you can't prove that that's the case.
I can think of a test for it.
And there's also a natural progression of technology that was happening then anyway. So what all these other barbarian nations around the world apart from America would have been like, oh, what's that? Computer? I don't know how to computer works. I don't like computers. I'm going back to my cave. They're all too stupid, Chinese included. None of them would have picked up on it, Neil. If America wasn't there pointing out, you got to use the computers to make things better.
You got to plug it in first.
Got to plug it in.
That has been the core assumption of the believers, not just American, the Anglos, the Western Europeans, that without us, you would not have modernization because they made westernization synonymous with modernization. The Chinese have shown now that, in fact, you can decouple the two. They have modernized their own way, and that is the shit test of whether or not without Pax Americana, all is anarchy and chaos. It's a jungle out there. And they're desperately trying to prevent the proof of that test from emerging.
It smacks of that that meme or that cliche of like the abusive partner or in a relationship saying, you're no good without me. You'll be no good on your own, That's why I keep you locked up in the house, because you'd be no good on your own. You wouldn't survive.
It's the same thing where you had the overthrow of various governments at the thanks to American intervention, both directly and indirectly. And then you can look at the situation and be like, okay, so did the people there actually benefit from this? In what way? And was it proportionate or disproportionate to how American businesses benefited or elites within the country itself? Because you can look at a couple of examples and see that it doesn't look like this was for the greater good. It looks like you were doing this for yourself.
Yeah.
And the rest is just bullshit.
It's max of an attempt to hijack natural processes and claim them as something that you made yourself. That no such natural processes would ever happen unless I made them happen, because I'm a reality creator. I make all good things happen. And, to be honest, under the stewardship, let's say, of America over the past 80 years, I can think of ways in which the world could have and should be much better, much more positive than it is today. I don't see it as being in good shape at all. So even on that count, I give them an F, a failing grade.
It could have been different.
If they want to claim ownership of it, they failed.
It could have been in
terms of what it could have been.
If JFK had not been killed by
the Americans,
in a little shithole country in the desert, then we would have had a very different turn of events. Or what's his name from the UN? Starts with an H.
A Swedish guy.
Are you thinking of a UN leader, a Secretary General?
Yeah. Oh, it was the one that died. Died in the plane
crash. Also killed in 63 or 64.
Yeah.
The CIA killed him. I think he was Swedish. He was
Swedish, yeah.
Swedish Secretary General.
Yep.
Yeah. He had a very different. He had a vision of he got the job and he thought, okay, the job description is this, right? So I'm going to help this situation here. But he realized he was going up directly against, in that case, against the Belgians, the French, and the Americans.
So there was always a different way forward.
Dag Hammarskjöld.
Thank you.
Dark Hammer's gold.
So there was always a different way forward. It was the fact that way forward that actually would have led to peace, that actually would have led to prosperity, that was the road not taken because
people didn't forced us down a different road.
Because we were forced down a different path. Because that's not what the reality creators wanted. They didn't want to create a reality where there was peace and prosperity for the majority of people. They wanted the reality where they could blow up little kids.
Because you know what you have when you have peace and prosperity for the majority. That you have, it's called multipolarity. You don't have peace and prosperity for the majority or for everyone in a unipolar world. I mean, I suppose in theory you could.
Yeah.
No.
But generally speaking, it wouldn't work out that way.
There have to be losers. It's a far more hierarchical, tight hierarchical.
Yeah. The problem with unipolarity is that there's going to be people who see it as unjust and unnecessary, and much better. Multipolarity is much better. Obviously, cooperation and unity of amongst many or whatever, or a group of nations, all sharing power, relative to their influence and power and strength and all that kind of stuff. But if you have one power dictates to everybody else, then someone else is going to complain about that, and then you're going to have to put them in their place if you want to maintain unipolarity, and then you're going to have conflict. So unipolarity has baked into it the very high probability of conflict. Whereas multipolarity, where everybody gets on board with it and can agree with it.
In the SCO statement at the end of their summit, there was something about an increased democratization of world power. That's an amazing, counter to the narrative reason for why unipolarity is the best, because the unipolar system is all the big democracies, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the best way. Churchill said, democracy is awful, but it's better than all the rest. Something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only way, guys. It's the optimal system. There is no other. And yet it's inherently anti-democratic vis-a-vis at the level of countries. In addition, in this day and age, it's also not democratic inside the democracies because all the elections are rigged.
Yeah.
It's a sign of the times that the democracies are now democracies in quotes. They're no longer functionally such, and internationally in their treatment of anyone outside the golden billion, it's definitely not democratic.
Mm-hmm.
But that specific statement was included by the Chinese, and the comeback in the West by true believers in the system, the status quo would be, but Xi Jinping's not democratically elected. How can he even know what it is to democratize power?
Mm-hmm.
It's a lose-lose situation for the US as it always has been, I suppose. But like I say, they're going to have to adjust.
Mm-hmm.
Short of doing something totally apeshit, like actually starting something like a real World War III, they will just have to adjust.
And it's not going to go well.
Putin's comeback. So that salty message from Trump about conspiring. I mean, I was like, God, that's such a loaded comment. Putin just laughed it off and said, "Oh well, I'm Donald. I know. I can call him Donald because we're now on first name terms because we met personally in Alaska. Donald has a great sense of humor." And then he says something that's so magnanimous that's probably true. He says, "Listen, I've just been here for 4 days, and not once in both the formal and informal discussions I had with all the world leaders gathered here was a bad word said about the current U.S. administration.
Yeah,
U.S. neocon policy maybe, but nothing about." He's trying to say back to you, dude, we weren't even thinking about you. But you're so you're just looking at this with like envy and.
Yeah, but his response to that is, yeah, you would say that. Of course, that's what a liar like you would say. Try and make me think that you're not conspiring against me. You're trying to lull me into a false sense of security. So
That's what a person who's conspiring against me would say.
Exactly.
Is that they are not even thinking about me.
Exactly.
While they're thinking about me and planning on how to take me down.
Exactly.
Oh,
Because they're obsessed with me.
You're that
I live rent free in all their heads. I have to. MAGA!
Murder.
Anyway, do you see there's a big barrage of surprise 800 drones and missiles, whatever, fired at Ukraine last night. One of them for the first time ever, and this gets to what we were talking about, I think, on the last show or sometime recently. But the first time they hit the office of the minister or something like that.
It's the building, the cabinet minister's building.
Yeah.
I don't think it was deliberate, though. I don't think it was actually targeted.
Not according to their official statement, no.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, maybe it was a drone that just went off course, or
an air defense went haywire.
Maybe.
Or it's just an air defense actually successfully hit a drone and a part of it just...
It's the cabinet of ministers. Yeah, it houses offices of Ukraine's main ministers, which is kind of unusual. It's a big building and only the corner of it was hit and it was kind of set on fire, but...
It was put out quickly, I think.
Yeah.
But still, it's an interesting first.
It's an interesting first time that they've actually hit any government buildings, if they did indeed deliberately do it. BBC claims it was a symbolic strike.
A kind of a hint. A warning.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, that's just kind of taken over. There's not much to report on that as far as I can see, apart from that it's carrying on as it has been. Go ahead.
No, yeah. I don't know if they're making this up to inflate how evil Russia is or something, but every time they report these now, it's like Russia launches the largest airstrikes yet.
I think they are increasing. They are increasing in number, though, and that's planned, because Russia's really ramped up drone production. So there's talk a couple of months ago about them being able to, get to the point where they can launch 1,000 drones in one go, one night, at Ukraine. So yeah. But talking about demonizing, did you see? I suppose von der Leyen, that unelected harpy. God, she's worse than Hillary Clinton to me. She went to Bulgaria for some kind of a meeting or something.
To visit a weapons plant.
Yeah. And all the media, right? AP, everything, BBC, everywhere, sent out, put out stories that her plane was forced to maintain a holding pattern for 1 hour before landing because Russia jammed the GPS in the area. As AP, Russia suspected of jamming navigation on EU leaders' plane above Bulgaria, official says. And if you go to the next picture, so this flight radar, and they put out a message afterwards saying, we're seeing media reports of GPS interference on her plane. Some claim the aircraft was in a holding pattern for 1 hour. And here's the data. Here's the live data that we got from our plane because we were following it. The flight was scheduled to take 1 hour 48 minutes, and it took 1 hour and 57 minutes, so 9 minutes longer than schedule. And the aircraft transponder reported good GPS signal quality from takeoff to landing. So that story was literally just made up, and literally made up. There was no truth to it whatsoever.
No,
our plane flew and landed.
Had the paper maps. They had the paper maps, Joe.
The paper maps. Yeah, they flew by paper maps, like ordnance survey maps, right?
Yeah,
yeah, like topographical,
topographical.
Yeah. Like they had a compass, and a map and a pencil
and
on
a
the plane.
sextant.
Yeah, and a sextant. Yeah, they were navigating by the stars, actually. But they literally, and this was like across the media, put out this story. If you go back to the previous one, Scotty, Russia jamming navigation on EU leaders, and it was official says. So somebody literally, like her plane took off, landed normally and everything, and then someone said, let's make up a story that her plane actually was delayed for more than an hour and had to circle around because it was lost because Russia jammed the GPS. Let's just say that. And somehow we're going to get it into every fucking media outlet in the Western world. And we did. And nobody retracted it.
It wasn't retracted.
Not by all the... Maybe one or two.
Maybe Brussels itself.
No, but she never spoke up and said, oh, by the way, I was on that plane and there was no holding... No, she went, yes, evil Russia. Because she's a harpy.
You know that...
Just talk about making shit up. And I mean, what more evidence do you want for like that the Western media is a branch of government, basically? You know what I mean? That it's like all of the media outlets are part of the propaganda arm of Western governments.
Yeah. And what's the insinuation here that
Russia is a deadly threat to Europe? It's jamming GPS. You could take down our planes at any point.
Because it might target the EU, the European Commission chief's plane.
Are we supposed to?
And we're all supposed to go.
Evil Russia.
We're supposed to go.
We're supposed to say, "Oh no!"
Hang on, where are my pearls?
How evil is Russia?
In fact, we're going. What did they? Oh no!
Damn it!
Yeah, we're supposed to go out there. We're like, oh, that was a good chance. Did it not crash?
Well, that's how you know it wasn't them.
Yeah,
because it didn't actually crash. Because they're not so incompetent or inept that if that's what they wanted to do, they could have done it. And there's nothing anyone in Europe could have done to stop them.
No.
So
yeah. what about these reports of?
Hold on. So I guess my point is that, and I'm going to speak directly to the press and to the governments of Europe. If you want us to believe it, that it's actually Russia, you can't make it seem like you got to go full.
You got to follow through.
You got to follow through. All right. If you want us to be clutching our pearls about how scary Russia is, like, yeah, you actually got to, sacrifice some pawns. All right, carry on. Sorry.
And just on just so people can, again, it's scaremongering. That's an example of scaremongering, and European governments are doing exactly the same thing. There is nothing behind their claims and their threats, however threadbare they are, of war with Russia. I think this has come up over the last couple of years once or twice. I think the German government sent out kind of leaflets to everybody in Germany about what to do in the event of an invasion.
Cold showers.
Well, it was cold showers before that. That was before the war, but this was like what to do in the event of an invasion or, nuclear war and all this kind of stuff. And then there was supposedly Macron. Now it's a kind of dodgy source, but it's the kind of thing he's been saying. Supposedly Macron said. Told French people to prepare for war by March 2026. It was published by the satirical newspaper Le Canard Enchaîné. The newspaper revealed that France's health minister Catherine Vaughan asked French health agencies, so this is about health, right? Asked French health agencies to prepare for a potential major engagement by March 2026. It's underneath the picture, Scotty. The next picture. Yeah, you have to open it up there. Continue reading. The newspaper revealed that France's health minister asked French health agencies to prepare for potential major engagement by March 2026. According to the newspaper, French authorities have also asked hospitals to prepare for the possibility of treating several thousand soldiers over a period ranging from 10 to 180 days.
The next one.
Yeah.
They should be ready to care for both French and foreign soldiers in the event of a major conflict.
The spokesperson explained that it was preparing for the possibility of dealing with a potentially large influx of victims from abroad, meaning that the country's hospitals need to be ready to treat military patients in the civilian health system. So that's what it is, right? So the only thing that actually makes sense is that you can make only way you can make sense of it is in the context of them claiming about European peacekeepers in Ukraine. So he's given a time frame there. And again, this is Macron, the Brigitte's punching bag. This is the guy who likes to talk shit a lot and puff himself up. But the time frame is March 2026. So that would, and with all the talk about European peacekeepers after settlement of the conflict in Ukraine, that suggests, so we've got between now and March, you've got 6 months. So within that 6 month time frame, you're going to have an end to the Ukrainian conflict, according to Macron. His new name is Macron, by the way.
Micron?
Yeah.
Micro penis?
Yes, micro. End of conflict within the next 6 months, plus the establishment of quote unquote European peacekeeping troops in Ukraine during that period of time. And then by March, so within that 6 month time frame, Russia making good on its promises that those peacekeepers would be not acceptable, and if they're there, they would be legitimate military targets, and a bunch of them having to be treated in France's hospitals. For what purpose? I don't know, because Macron gets to be a General Macron, General Micro. He's at war, Macrolian. It'll keep him going until the 2027 elections, and maybe
you can declare a state of emergency.
He can stay president, maybe because France is at war, because Russia attacked us, because I deliberately sent French troops to Ukraine and orchestrated some kind of an incident where French troops got injured. But anyway, so this is supposedly what was put out there. It's obviously nonsense, and why would you do it except if you're a complete shit for brains? Yes, let's send some French troops who basically have known no combat ever in to confront hardened, seasoned Russian troops in Ukraine who have been fighting for the past 4 years, and see how that goes. Oh, look, we got our asses handed to us. Well, send them to the hospitals, and I'll declare that we might be at war or something, and everybody should be afraid.
Then I can take
and I'll
their
send
shirts
out the
off.
iodine tablets, huh?
And then I can take their shirts off.
Yes, I'll go and give them a good rub down in the hospitals to nurse them back to health. All the boys for me. All the sweaty military boys. Put them all in one room and close the door.
We're laughing, but next week the French government could fall, and Macron could be faced with not being able to find someone, his sixth prime minister, to form a new government.
Mm-hmm.
The way the system works in France, he's just sort of head of state foreign affairs, and the prime minister and his cabinet that he appoints, in line with parliamentary election results, runs domestic affairs. But if that collapses and he can't find a replacement, can't pass next year's budget, the rumor is that he will invoke an article in the French constitution where he can rule by decree. But the constitutional court would normally only allow that for a month or two during the emergency. But if the emergency is big and long, he could theoretically see out the end of his term to 2027 under the umbrella of war with Russia. You wonder, I wouldn't put it past them. I don't think they're nuts enough to actually try to beat Russia on the battlefield, but to sacrifice their own countrymen for their own positions of power, that's totally believable. I could believe Western European governments could be poised to do that.
They've been using rhetoric to keep themselves in power.
Rhetoric so far, but now they might actually need bodies.
Yeah, well, definitely, it's not beyond them to do that. So, speaking about bodies, you see the number of German politicians who mysteriously died over the past. I think there's 16 of them.
Yeah.
About 8 or 9 of them from the AfD. Germany has legislative elections upcoming now in September 12th, I think, next week. So people are wondering if there's been some...
There's two ways of looking at that.
Skullduggery.
Either the AfD had been targeted specifically, or, a portion of them, or the AfD is already the biggest party in Germany, and they're covering that up, i.e., they won the last election. Logically, that's two logical paths you can go with that news. Because it's either a conspiracy that's super murky and they're bumping them off somehow. I don't know, heart attacks or whatever. Or it speaks to how big AFD already is, that they have more candidates to field in more places or something.
Yeah, apparently there's like something. I think it's 20,000 candidates are being put out there for in these local elections, basically. I think it's 20,000 total, but it's just showing by large numbers there, so who knows? But again, wouldn't put it past them. Basically, it's very likely. I think if you allow for election rigging, it's very likely the AFD probably won the last election. It's very likely that the Front National or the what do they call it now?
RN,
the French right wing party under Marine Le Pen and her successor. They won the last French election. The last French presidential election. Macron should not be in power. But so if they're willing to rig elections in the past, and then it gets to the point where they just double down on their bad policies and they get more and more unpopular, then they might have to resort to more drastic means to try and swing future elections or legislative elections. By secretly offing people. Who knows?
We know that it's been several years since there was a cluster of AFD politicians, probably only local. I don't know. I doubt they were actual Bundestag, German federal politicians, but they were killed in attacks at street level.
We look what they did in Romania. That was blatant interference in an election to prevent a right-wing candidate from
daylight robbery,
from becoming, and
so thinly veiled that no one believes it, and held together by NATO, the Romanian wing of NATO. George Soros appointed judges. It's literally held together by a clique. Europe is absolutely ripe for something to happen. But for now, Europeans are still too materially comfortable. We have to see German deindustrialization bite. Might happen sooner or later, but that has yet to really kick in, and it will, though.
Yeah, that kind of thing. You see on American Twitter, Americans kind of like lamenting the fall of Europe and all that kind of stuff. But I actually kind of welcome it and hope it speeds up, because the sooner it gets to a crisis point, the sooner it's over with. And then you can change it up. And people will have learned the lesson, and that kind of clique that are in now won't be able to get back in, at least for another generation or something like that. So the more overt that kind of bullshit is, the better. Like in the UK, arresting people for mean tweets and stuff like that.
Little old ladies having a sign.
Yeah, exactly. Telling
at the pro-Palestine protest.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. The more of that, the better, because that's the nature of these people who are desperately trying to cling on to power when they don't have any popular support. And the sooner that becomes apparent to everybody, and people just go, look, there doesn't even have to be a revolution in the streets. You can just go. People just get to the point where they go, look, these people are totally illegitimate. What they're doing is obviously ridiculous. No one agrees with it. It's ridiculous. And people just walk away in a certain sense, or something happens. It doesn't have to be, especially when people, like you said, are still materially well enough off. They're not going to get out in the streets and wreck the place and have a revolution, right? But what they can do is just realize that the government is so disassociated from the actual will of the people, or so unrepresentative of the will of the people that people just kind of maybe they're almost single digit turnout in the next election or something like that, or people just walk away. And I think that shift in mindset amongst the population can often have a similar effect to, in terms of changing things, as a grassroots revolution in times gone by might have been necessary to have in order to have the same effect. Because it seems it's so much, maybe it's always been this way, but so much these days, so much of the power, people in positions of power, their legitimacy and what they hold on to is based on the belief of the population that they are legitimate, that they're actually reasonable people, and that they're,
or that
give them a chance, or someone else.
It's the majority, or
the
majority. It's just that the majority of people
vote,
actually want it.
I'm the only one who doesn't vote it,
which is so important for why they have to control elections and polling, because then you can get away with anything. It's like, well, I mean, if half the people want it, then
I must be in the other half.
Yeah.
But then eventually it gets to the point where, like,
I know no one who supports this.
Yeah, you get to the point, hang on a minute, I'm going to go and check around the entire country, and can't find even one person, you find everybody in the country, everybody of voting age in the country saying, well, must just be me. Literally everybody, going, must just be me who doesn't agree with everybody else.
Whatever about Germany, France has a large standing army. So
that are no good.
Yeah, well, still no good. Sure, not battle hardened, because the last thing they were doing was chasing a few ragheads in Mali. But there was a rumor. Not a rumor. Was it actually a quote from a top general who was subsequently fired during the Gilets jaunes? That was intense. That was a short, sharp, intense rebuke from the people in November, December 2018. And some advisor to Macron was on TV going, the state is trembling. I'm trembling. I'm shitting my pants here. They're trying to storm the Elysee Palace. And there was something like, someone asked this general what he thought about the situation. He said, we're watching closely. That's all I have to say. So between the line, and that was interpreted as, if we have to, we're going to coup. We're going to coup this thing, and just, it'll be a military coup, effectively, force Macron out or something. But now, 7 years have passed. It's hard to believe. 7 years. No such thing happened. But then there hasn't been the same kind of revolutionary demonstration on the street.
But suppose there's one upcoming.
Maybe it's wishful thinking that there will be a coup.
But there's possibly, supposedly, strikes and protests upcoming
next week. Yeah. In France.
Block Everything is the name of the name of the group. The grassroots.
Bloc en tous.
Yeah. Wreck it all. Break it all down. No. Well, we'll see. We'll see what they're made of, because obviously the French have shown themselves to be pretty effective in those things in the past, like you said, with the Gilets jaunes, but I haven't seen that kind of dedication and persistence in really any other European country anyway, or in the US, or anywhere in the golden billion. But so we'll see if it's up to the same level. Time will tell.
You got any comment on these deployments of National Guard? So far, it's DC and LA.
Yeah, and they're looking at Chicago.
Oh yeah, Trump's tweeting like crazy apocalypse now.
Yeah, style memes.
Yeah,
it's. I mean, he's not wrong that there are serious crime problems in these cities, and that they are deliberately doing things to not address the issues that are leading to it. and are actively doing things that make it worse. Where, it's like one of those things where it's like, okay, now we're no longer going to charge anybody who's stealing anything under $600. Okay, now we're not going to charge anybody unless it's over $1,000. Okay, now we're not going to.
Yeah.
They just keep doing these kinds of policy changes that are making criminality not legal but not prosecuted.
Yeah.
Which means, well, if I can get away with all this stuff and not be charged for it, then, well, there's a number of individuals who will do it because they can get away with it, because it's a lot easier to do that than work a job. That's not the majority of people. It's not the majority of people in those areas even. But it's enough to cause problems, serious problems big enough to warrant extreme measures.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
A side-by-side comparison, like those Americans commenting about the state of Europe on X. Oh my God, Europe's fallen. Whenever there's something.
Yeah.
Stabbing, a riot, a car burning. It's probably worse in the US in American cities, right? I
don't know statistics offhand.
But it's become normalized. Like Chicago gets 40 murders a day or a weekend or something.
Something ridiculous, yeah.
And it's like,
oh, that's just normal.
It's normal. Obviously the Mockingbird media is painting Trump's National Guard deployments as, yeah, you see, we told you since 2015, this guy wants to be a dictator. But in reality, the DC deployment, well, it's been extended to November, but the city itself has sued the federal government to try and get it lifted. There was a big protest in DC against it this weekend. And the LA deployment is gone. That was in response to the anti-ICE riots in June. And at this point, just 300 of the original 4,000 troops remain on patrol in any capacity in LA. So, like, I don't know if it's maybe it's Trump versus the Mockingbird media, and he shows the leash and then he withdraws it or something. He's too timid to follow through. But it's, in any event, it's nowhere near like a dystopian scenario.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we already kind of knew that when it was quite obvious that he won the 2020 election and he didn't do anything about it and he just kind of let it stand. Then you were just kind of like, well, he's a neutered little bitch.
Yeah. And that's all there is to it.
That's all there is to it.
God, you really have turned black pill MAGA, huh? Black MAGA.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like I've.
It's too big a problem to fix.
Yeah,
it's too.
There's too many big problems that theoretically it may be possible to solve, maybe, but the way that you solve those problems is not making Israel first.
Right.
And so that's kind of like where I'm at with that, is like, there's ways of making America great again. None of them involve putting Israel first. And so when he keeps putting Israel first.
And why is he doing that, Adam?
I don't know. Because the Jews run the world.
Say it ain't so.
I don't know because the Jews run the world. Come on. Is that your attempt to be coy? Come on. It's because his daughter married one, obviously.
Yeah.
Speaking of Nick Fuentes. I know. some of his clips are golden, though. So there was one where he says, he describes what life in the US is like now. He says it's a narco tyranny.
Mhm.
Like, what the fuck is a narco tyranny? Well, yeah, depending on who you are, it's like anarchy. You can do the crimes knowing you won't get stopped because of racism, or if you do see a judge, you'll be let off anyway. 14, 15, 20, 25 times. In fact, if you're in any way mishandled by the cops, you might even get a payout. There's actually benefits to doing crime, supplementary benefits from the state, stuff like that. It's kind of like anarchy. You literally can get away with anything. On the other hand, it's a narco tyranny because if you're not so inclined, you live in a world where you're fighting paycheck to paycheck, and you absolutely must get the forms filled in right. You go a little bit over the speed limit, you're getting a parking ticket. We're all constrained by rules and regulations and more taxation and more everything. And Trump, I'm sure he's sincere in trying to simplify the tax code and to release the burden on decent people. I'm not sure how successful that's been actually trickling down and out across the country, because as things stand now, it's tyrannical. You're afraid to speak out because you might lose your job. You might be deported if you stand up for the Palestinians. That's the tyranny part. They're both to go together. If for the criminal mindset, it's glorious. This is like the freest America can be. But if you're more normal, it's tyrannical. We live in peak tyranny. It's like not peak. It could be worse. It could always be worse. You could have jackboots, bashing down your door and black bagging you, of course.
Yeah.
So it's a horrible mix of the two. So it's probably more pronounced over there, but it's similar in Europe.
Why is America not allowed to have or the Brits not allowed to have an ethno-state of any description?
Why?
The Brits.
Brits or the Americans or whoever's lobbying for one, against immigrants and wanting to keep their country for the English, for the Americans, for whites, for whatever. Why is that not allowed in the West, but Israel is allowed to do it?
Whoa. There is no comparison, Joe.
What do you mean?
You cannot compare the two because you're implying
it's antiseptic.
That it's antiseptic.
No, I'm not.
The fact that you're
implying that it's antiseptic.
It's antiseptic.
So I can't even ask that question.
You can't even ask that question because it's not even comparable.
Whatever. I won't ask it then. If I'm not allowed, I'm not allowed. Maybe I'm going to get arrested or something for asking that question.
They got special dispensation
3,000 years ago.
God said they could.
From Gad said.
Gad said they could.
Senator Cruz said when he was growing up as a boy in Sunday school, he was told that whatever happens, they get an ethno-state and you do whatever they say. And that's how it is.
Mm-hmm.
That's more or less what Cruz said to Tucker Carlson. So obviously it's a circular argument. It's not a real argument, but
yeah. But you can't have an ethno-state in America or Germany or Britain or France or anywhere because of racism. Because it's racist. But
yeah. So
that rule does not apply.
It's one of the enduring mysteries of life that doesn't have an answer. It's one of those questions, that
I think
it's such a deep question that when you really, find a question that is the right question to ask, you really got to the core of the topic. That's the case whenever there's no answer.
Yeah.
Or you're not allowed to answer it. You really hit the essence of the problem. And any questions that either don't have an answer or you're not allowed to answer, they're the most important ones.
Mm-hmm.
You've done your digging properly.
Yeah.
You've excluded all the extraneous waffling and you've got to the essence, the crux of the matter. And the answer is
Here's a related. I think the next one is a related question. Why are Russians not allowed to be at peace with other white countries? Given that whites are now only 9% of the world when they used to be 36% 100 years ago, and they're a dwindling minority, and yet there's this, functionally it's a civil war between whites. Russia
Slavs
versus NATO.
Slavs.
No, Slavs. Well, it is that. That's one level of the civil war.
Yeah.
It's also a European civil war, so it's Slavs versus Celts and Germanics and Anglos. And then if you include the United States as well and the rest of the Anglosphere, it's...
Why is it whitey versus whitey?
It's a white civil war.
But that one's easy. It's just because they're more aggressive.
Who's more aggressive?
The whites.
The whites in general. So they're always at war with each other.
Always fighting each other. Just look at history. All fighty and invadey and imperially. Of course they're gonna. That's why the world needs to be taken over by the more peace-loving, dark-skinned people and Jews, who are very peace-loving, as everyone knows.
Except they're not.
Who's the Jews?
No,
they are.
Obviously, given what's going on,
they're the most peace-loving. They're the most. What's the word they use? Their military is the most
moral army in the world.
Moral army in the world. Don't forget that. Anything else, any other suggestion is vile anti-septicism. Septicism.
Anti-septicism.
Anti-septicism.
So we should just let India H-1B visa America to death.
Yes.
Because it won't be to death. It will be into a new renaissance where there's trash on every roadside.
Yes.
And all the toilets are clogged.
All the toilets are in the street. all the toilets are the gutters. And then in Europe, you let in a bunch of stabby jihadis and also sub-Saharan Africans. And it'll be good for the planet because a lot more trees will grow.
It's true.
Trees will take over and then it'll be better for everybody. I'm not going to go any further with that one. Anyway, so a woman gets in a bus with her baby and the bus driver says, "Ugh, that's the ugliest baby I've ever seen." The woman walks to the rear of the bus and sits down, fuming. She says to the man next to her, "That driver just insulted me." And the man says, "Jesus, you go up there and tell him off. Go on. I'll hold your monkey for you." All right.
That joke, by the way, was totally unrelated to our preceding conversation.
Yeah,
it was.
That was completely...
There was no...
To suggest anything else is vile anti-septicism or something. It's also transphobic.
I heard another one that I liked. It was...
yeah.
What do you call a lesbian on fire?
A hottie.
An LGBTQ.
LGBTQ. That's definitely anti something.
It's anti something.
You're anti. There's not an awful lot of antiism going on.
You gotta up the ante.
Up the ante.
This show is way too white. We need some diversity.
Yeah.
I could just put some black on my skin.
No, that won't do. We need some true...
Yeah. We need to find someone. We'll find them. I'm sure we can find one on the street somewhere. Yeah. So anyway, we better leave it there for this week, folks. Thanks for watching. I hope you like the show. We'll be back and for commenting and for whatever else we're doing. We'll be back next week with another one on whatever bullshit has been going on between now and then. So until then, have a good week. Bye.
Bye out.
Can't stop the signal now.